my name is Gregory Glover, and I'm an outreach coordinator for the Civilian Complaint Review Board. My agency investigates alleged misconduct filed against New York City police officers. We became independent of the NYPD in 1993. Our agency is staffed entirely with civilians, most of whom are investigators and attorneys. This agency is governed by a 13-member board who appoints an executive director to run the agency. The CCRB was created to provide you with an opportunity to address potential police misconduct that may have been committed against you. We receive nearly 6,000 complaints each year that comes to our office. An officer's job is to uphold the laws of our community and to protect citizens. This can be a dangerous job for the officer. Nevertheless, they have strict rules by which they must follow. These rules are spelled out in their patrol guide. And when our investigators investigate a complaint of misconduct, we look to see if they has broke any rules under their patrol guide. But on top of that, we must remain neutral and unbiased during the investigation. So has anyone here had any negative or positive interactions with the police, or any at all? And if so, would you like to share? No one? Are you all from New York City? This is our jurisdiction. The misconduct that we investigate is excessive force, abuse of authority, discourtesy, and offensive language. We use the acronym FADO. Do you think there's ever a need for a police officer to use force? That's another open question.
What was the question again?
Is there ever a need for a police officer to use force? Of course. Why? So you would say, in the case of resisting arrest, to effect the arrest, force is necessary. Okay, anyone else? To take control of the situation, right? Anyone else? Okay, anyone else? Well, yes, police officers may have to use force depending upon the situation. It was spoken here to effect an arrest, to protect citizens, or to protect themselves. However, there are guidelines to determine how much force a police officer may use in a given situation. A force can be described as a kick, punch, push, taser use, and even up to deadly force. Abuse of authority. The patrol guide prohibits police officers from using their authority inappropriately. Can anyone give me an example of what they think abuse of authority might be? What a police officer might use his authority in the wrong way for?
Can you explain authority?
Huh? Very good. Yes.
Explain authority, please.
Authority, abuse.
Police officers' authority.
Well, police officers have broad authority, and I'm going to explain that a little later. But abuse of authority, what would you think when I say abuse of authority, what comes to mind?
Beating up a suspect with a club.
Okay, excessive force. Okay, we will investigate that under unnecessary and excessive force. Okay, abuse of authority. Well, abuse of authority is an unjustified stop and frisk. That's abuse of authority. If you ask a police officer for his name and shield number and he refuses to give it to you, we will investigate that as abuse of authority. When you ask those things, he's supposed to provide it for you. Discourtesy, discourteous language or action, including profanity. The NYPD promotes courtesy, professionalism, and respect, CPR, and officers are held to the standard in the performance of their duties, regardless of how you behave. So, for example, I'm also a city employee, and while giving this presentation, if it was laced with profanity, would you think that's courteous and respectful to you guys? No, right? It would be disrespectful of your time. So regardless of how you behave, police officers are always held to the standard, even more than I am held to it. Discourtesy, also. A police officer throws his ID back at you after you complies and give it to him. Another example, he gestures with his middle finger. That's also discourtesy, and we will also investigate that. Offensive language, negative language about your race, gender, religion, ethnicity, disability, or sexual orientation. Now, what to do in a police encounter? You have the card right there in front of you, and we always talk about de-escalation because that is very important when encountering the police in public. Sometimes the force a police officer uses depends on how the civilian responds to the police officer. It is critical that as civilians, we do not take steps that may add to warrant the situation where the police officer will have to use force. It is always a good idea to remain calm, cool, and collected when talking to a police officer. This prevents the encounter from escalating to a bad situation. Although it may go against our nature to act calmly when someone isn't acting calmly with us, it is in your best interest to do so. You will never win if you decide to physically fight with the police officer. And here I will pose another question. Does anyone here think they can win a physical fight with the police officer? Who said yes? Come on. Don't be shy now. You see, I ask this question because I get different responses depending on where I am. In college, everyone says no. In high school, I normally get 6 boys who will raise their hand to say that they can win a fight with the police officer. And I normally give them this example. I call it my theory of winning the battle and winning the war. Now, I've been a martial artist since I was probably about 12 years old, and I still practice today. Muay Thai is my specialty. Anyone who doesn't know what that is kickboxing. And I'm fairly okay at it. I have lost some, I have won some. And I probably can take a police officer. But what will happen is when I take the police officer, he's going to wake up at some time and he's going to call for backup because he has my description. And since I don't have a lot of money, I can't move out of the state or the country, they're going to catch me. And when they catch me, I'm going to central booking, probably charged with a felony or 2. And then after a trial, I probably will be convicted and go upstate and do time. And then I have a felony on my record. I'm planning on going to law school at some point in my life and getting a better job than I'm presently working at. Now, a felony will prevent me from doing all those things. But on the other hand, that police officer went home that same night. He got 12 hours of overtime on my arrest alone. He probably will get a promotion at some point, and he's praised by his friends. And I always ask them then, who won? I may have won the battle, but in the long run, I lost the war. So then after that, the high school kids, then they put their hand down. They're like, yeah, I see it now. There are 4 levels of police encounters with the public. And in a case in New York State in 1976 called People versus DeBoer, they laid out the requirements for police encounters with civilians on the street. And the first encounter is a request for information. And in order for a police officer to approach you at this level, they must have an objective, credible reason. And under this objective, credible reason, they can ask you general questions such as your name, where do you live, where are you going, what are you doing in the area. Also, they cannot ask pointed or accusatory questions. They may not request to search you at this level. And also at this level, you do not have to answer the officer's questions. You can actually turn and walk away. And if you turn and walk away at this level, it does not escalate the encounter. And the police officer, through his words and actions, cannot make you feel as if, I'm going to ask you a question in a second because I see your face. The police officer cannot make you feel through his words and actions that you're unable to leave. Level 2 is called a common law right of inquiry. At this level, it's a little more intrusive. This level, the police officer can approach you if he has a founded suspicion of criminality. For example, what would be founded suspicion? Being in a known drug location, coming out of a known drug building, could be founded suspicion. Now, under this level, he can still walk up to you and question you at this level. At this level, you still don't have to answer his question. And you still may walk away. And it does not raise the suspicion at this level. Also, the officer can request to search you, but he must have your permission at this level. The next is a stop. Under a stop, you cannot turn and walk away. Under a stop, you're being temporarily detained by the officer. Also, if you do walk away at this level, he can use reasonable force, this time to detain you, until he runs an investigation to determine if there's probable cause to arrest you at this level. And the next, after he stops you, is a frisk. Now, anytime during the stop, the officer determines or sees that there's probable cause that you may be carrying a dangerous weapon, he can then frisk you. And the frisk is for his protection. He can only frisk, pat down your outer clothing, and he cannot frisk you for evidence of a crime or for contraband. He can only frisk you for weapons. And while frisking you, if he feels a bulge in his pocket, in your pocket that feels like a knife or a gun, he will have then reasonable suspicion to go in your pocket and pull it out. If he pulls it out and it's a gun or a knife, that will give him probable cause to arrest you. If it isn't, he does not have probable cause to arrest you. Was that clear for everyone? Anyone have a question on that? In order for him to have reasonable suspicion to stop you, reasonable suspicion under this is you have committed, you're about to commit, or going to commit a crime. And if he has that, then he has reasonable suspicion to stop you.
He doesn't tell you anything.
No, actually he doesn't. If you ask, he's required to tell you if you ask, but he's not required if you don't. Because this is how you can tell if you're being stopped or questioned. You can ask the officer, am I free to leave? And if he says yes, then you're being questioned under level 1 and 2. If he says no, you're being stopped. And if you ask him, he's required to tell you that you're free to leave. He cannot say no. He cannot ignore your request. So that's how, so it doesn't squash 1 or 2. If you ask that question, you'll know. Anyone else? See, that's why I'm here, to inform you, because if that happens again, you can call us and file a complaint, because that's discourtesy and abuse of authority. And also, because you were arrested doesn't mean you can still file a complaint even if you're arrested. That's why I'm here to teach you about street encounters, so you'll be informed and to know. So if that happens to you again, or if it ever happens to you or someone you know, you can call us and we will investigate it. Any more questions?
We need your name and number.
Not my name and number, because I'm not an investigator, but the cards I've given you,
That's not common knowledge.
it's not. And a lot of people, and the reason people feel the way she does, because people don't know. So that's why I'm here, to inform you of this, of their rights and your rights under,
So what's the number?
it's on the cards.
There are no cards.
I have my personal card, but I'm not an investigator to file a complaint.
Is there no number, a general number?
Yes, the numbers are on the information I've given you.
We didn't get it.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's around.
I didn't get one of these.
One is under your eye. One is under your eyeglass case. No, right there. It's right there. That right there. Numbers on that. Well. See, we cannot take out the human factor. Although I'm sitting here telling you your rights, they're still human beings, and this is theory. And when you encounter the police, it's better to listen to them at the scene, because it will not turn out in your favor most of the time, and deal with it after. Call us after, instead of ending up in that situation where it's negative for you or me or anyone else. So that's where we come in. If you felt that you have been unjustly stopped, questioned and frisked, call us and we'll investigate it. Or there's other ways, but call us instead of dealing with it there, because most of the time it will not turn out well for the civilian. That's why we discuss de-escalation. Now, how to file a complaint. There are 5 ways to do it: by phone, at your local police precinct, at our website, in person, at 100 Church Street, or by mail. Now, after you file a complaint, there'll be 2 ways to resolve your complaint: through mediation and investigation. If you decide to have your complaint mediated, you'll have the opportunity to sit down with the officer in a quiet, private setting with the trained mediator who doesn't work for the NYPD or our office, but they're paid by us, and you can sit down and you can talk to the officer and tell the officer how the encounter made you feel. During the mediation process, it's about coming to an understanding between you and the officer. The officer gets to hear your point of view, and you get to hear his point of view as well. It's a non-intimidating process where you guys can hash things out. 90% of mediations are successful. It's been proven. Mediations has also been proven to change the officer's behavior. Most officers who go through mediation has fewer future CCRB complaints than officers who have their cases investigated. And if you decide, and also mediation is a non-disciplinary process. So that means if an officer agrees or the civilian officer agrees to mediation, it will not stay on his record. But if he decides to get the case investigated, then that, regardless of the outcome of the case, that will remain on his record. And how do we conduct investigations? Our investigations are based on evidence. The civilian will have to agree to the mediation first. It's not up to the officer. It's up to the civilian. We'll give the civilian the choice whether the civilian wants to mediate the case or not. If the civilian wants to, then we'll go through with it. No. It has nothing to do with the police department at that point. It was held in our office. See, we're not a part of the police department. So it'll be your choice. We will present that to you. We'll present that. We'll say, would you like your case mediated? Depending on the circuit. And if you decide yes, then we'll ask the officer. And if the officer agrees, then we'll set that up. If you decide that you want the officer disciplined, then we'll investigate the case fully at that point. We call people down for interviews. When we investigate cases, we call the civilian and the officer down. And through that investigation, we'll find out what's going on. We'll look at patterns of that, and we'll see if that's happening. We wouldn't just let it keep mediating. We'll see that'll come up as being really fishy. Yeah. As a civilian, we'll present these options to you. Yeah, and then if you want mediation, then we'll set it up. If you want the officer disciplined, then we'll follow through with the investigation. But either or, we still will have to get a statement from you before that and the officer during the initial stages of the investigation. So you just can't call and say blah, 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 and we just leave it and go on. We'll call you in, we'll get an official statement, a signed official statement, and then we'll also call the officer in as well and get an interview. Well, if you felt that's unjust, right. And if it falls under our jurisdiction, excessive force, abuse of authority, discourtesy, or offensive language, and you file a complaint, we will call it in and we'll investigate it based on your complaint. Well, we're not helpless because our investigations expose light on the officer. It plays a role in determining his promotions within the police department. Also, we deal with the administrative side of investigating him. We cannot infringe on the district attorney, which deals with the criminal side, or the civil courts. We deal with only administrative matters that would affect his job. So that's what we deal with. So yes, it means a lot. Yes, it does mean something. Officers who have been investigated and we substantiate certain allegations has been fired. Officer has been disciplined. So it means something. It means a lot. And it exposes the officer's behavior to the department. Also, if we see patterns of certain officers or the department, we can recommend policy changes to the police department or the police commissioner as well. Well, we don't deal with the courts, but we will come to you. We have investigators that if you cannot make it because of certain situations, we'll come to you. We'll come to you on the weekends if we have to. Okay? Whatever's convenient for you, we'll come to you. If you go on our website, you can look at the stats. You can look at statistics of substantiated cases. You can come to our office, or you go down to One Police Plaza and watch us prosecute officers as well at administrative trial. When a police officer joins the NYPD, they know from the time they walk in the door that they're subject to the CCRB. They're subject to us. They know that they have to answer to us from the time they walk in the door. Yes, they know that. Not the PBA, that's the union. That has nothing to do with the police. That's the police union. The commissioner, most of the time when we substantiate an allegation and recommend punishment, 97% of the time the police commissioner take our recommendation. After we investigate the case, we will send a summary of the facts to a board of 3 board members, and the board members will vote on whether they want to substantiate the case, whether it's unsubstantiated, but the officer exonerated, or it's unfounded. And for example, if we found that we substantiate a case and we recommend punishment, we will send the findings to the police commissioner. And if the officer refuses to accept the punishment, the charges, suspension, or being fired or command discipline, we will try him at an administrative trial. We're all civilian agency. 5 are appointed by the mayor, 5 by the city council, each from the 5 boroughs of New York City, and 3 are appointed by the police commissioner with former law enforcement experience. They're not presently police officers. But they had been, right. And this board is made up of 3 people, one appointee from the police.
There were 13.
No, I'm telling you about when we send the facts of the case to a panel of 3 to vote on the charges.
Who were those 3?
I'm about to tell you right now. There's one appointee from the police commissioner, one appointee from the city council, and one appointee from the mayor. Actually, our cases has been going down, especially for young people from the age of 18 to 24. It has been going down. I can give you some numbers. We substantiate 20 to 25% of the allegations that comes to us. Over 97% of the time when we recommend discipline to the police commissioner, he follows the discipline. He follows the recommendations. So we recommend that an officer should be fired. 97% of the time, the officer is fired. If we recommend suspension, 97% of the time, that officer is suspended.
Do you give an annual report?
Yes, it's on our website. We give semi-annual reports. Every 6 months we give a report, and you can find these reports on our website. Every 6 months. Actually, you can go there now. You can find the current semi-annual report on our website right now, if you go in there right now. The way the civilian. Oh, well, of course, we're a city agency. We're always going to have people who is either not enough or not satisfied. That's the nature of government. That's the nature of the political climate. Let me say this, because government agencies do not exist in a vacuum. There's internal oversight and external oversight. Also, let me just share this with you. You know the reason we exist today is because citizens such as yourself in the 1950s got tired of police abuse, and they protested the city for a civilian complaint review board, for civilian oversight of the police department. We exist not because somebody just one day, no, citizens like you came together and got tired of police abuse. That's why we are here. So citizens have power if citizens decide to use the power. If citizens decide to use the power, they have it. But if they don't, just like I'm here giving a presentation, you know about us now. If something happens to you and you do not use it, you're telling that officer that it's okay to come into your community or your house and to continue to treat you the way he's treating you. But if you don't use the power as a citizen that you have, then that's what you get. So they're not all powerful. Well, like anything, nothing is 100%. Like anything in this world. So the police commissioner, there may be special circumstances why the police commissioner didn't follow the recommendations, which I don't know. Well, some cases are not unsubstantiated or unfounded because some people do not follow through with the complaint. Some people will call and they won't follow through, or we have a hard time locating people to follow through with the complaint. Or sometimes it's just the officer word against the civilian. We cannot find witnesses to, give us outside facts on the case. So some of those things play a part in that.
A lot of these things are he said, she said. In other words, there's no way of ever finding out the truth because there's no third-party witness to this thing. So if a cop was to curse at someone, let's say on a car stop, not saying that they did it or not, there's no way actually proving that. The cop says, I didn't do it. But let me say this.
There has been cases that were substantiated on a cop cursing at someone just by interviewing the officer and listening to the officer's story. Cases has been substantiated on an officer cursing at someone or using profanity. I just wanted to add that.
Sometimes there was body cameras would, yes. Body cameras would probably help exonerate many officers and at times exonerate them also. So that's one of the things. You're saying about 3%. 3% is actually a pretty good number because the police commissioner has full autonomy for things like that. The mayor gives him that autonomy. So he's the one that disciplines. He has the right to fire officers. So that's actually a pretty good number. That he's changing 3% of those complaints. That's not high. Compared to the rest of them. So the officers today are, I think, believe it or not, but are much more courteous than they used to be because they know there are people watching. There's phones that people videotape them. So I think the amount of officers today are actually doing things that they're not supposed to be doing or discourteous are substantially lower than they were 20, 25, 30 years ago than they are today. So they perceive that way, but it is.
Under New York State, there's no law against, it's legal to videotape police officers. Just do not interfere with obstruct them, whatever they're doing. But you can, in New York State, legally videotape the police.
You can curse at an officer.
Right.
You can, if you're being some kind of, if you're, that discourtesy raises to a level that might cause some kind of disruption,
Like, let's
what
say
have you.
profound-
But if a person just simply videotaping and saying, whatever he's saying to the cops, no.
Right. If he's not inciting a crowd around him or anything, then yeah, because he still must remain courteous to you, regardless of that. But if you're inciting people, that getting the crowd riled up and all of that, then that could be a different story. Right. For many years, we've been underfunded. We're actually right now we're only an agency of 150 people, and we're the largest civilian oversight agency in the country. So that tells you how small we are and the work we're doing. So for many years, we've been underfunded, and our outreach unit actually we just started getting out here in the community about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, because of that, and it's growing. So our outreach unit is growing now. We have 2 people, me and my coworker, and we are bringing on others to inform the community and to empower the community and to teach communities their rights, as well as the police officers what they can do and the rights civilians have under street encounters and other things like that. And most of the time we're in high schools. We also go to high schools, community organization, precinct council meetings, and all those others. So we're out there, we're getting out there. And you can also go on the nyc.gov/CCRB and go into our website, and you have all the information you need on our website on what to do and how to reach us. And if you have a complaint, you can also go into your local police precinct and file a complaint as well. And they will forward the complaint to us.